Hello and welcome to the Ebbenflow podcast, episode 28. It's been a while, but I'm enjoying life in other ways, and I don't feel moved to do podcast episodes as frequently as I once did, but the spirit has moved me today, and today we're going to talk about inflation. So, inflation. Are we talking about balloons? Are we inflating balloons? Maybe. I mean, the concept of inflation, when you first think of it, you're like, well, what's being inflated? Because as a kid, the only thing you really inflated were balloons. And what happens when you inflate a balloon is you pump air into it and the balloon gets bigger. And it can keep inflating. And if you inflate it too much, it pops, right? That made me think of, can you inflate a pizza? In terms of increasing its volume and surface area, sure, you just add more ingredients to it, and the pizza has a larger and larger radius. And you can have the same amount of pieces, slices. But if you're hosting a party and it's a pizza party and you got all, 10 of your friends over, you say, hey, pizza party at my place. I'm getting a nice 24-inch pizza, large, and it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. Problem is, there's 10 people that are coming over, and you have a single 24-inch diameter pizza. You're not going to be able to feed everybody. Pizza will be a very sought after item at your party because it's scarce. It's if you know that not everyone's going to get a slice, people will do whatever they can to get a slice of the pizza. So the pizza is very valuable. This is just a run-of-the-mill party, we're putting it in hypotheticals here, right? If it was the end of the world, right? The apocalypse, you had 10 friends in your apocalypse squad, and you came across a 24-inch pizza. Again, this is a crazy analogy, but we're going to keep running with it. Every slice of that pizza is going to be valuable. People are going to be wanting it because they know that those are the only slices that are available. So sorry, I gotta, one of the cats is looking at me, but it's worth it to interrupt the podcast for looking at a cat. Now, let's apply the concept of inflation to the pizza. Let's grow it out to a 50-inch pizza, right? Now, people are getting satisfied. They're like, wow, this is a lot of pizza. We're going to be set for a while, right? It's great. And the people who inflated the pizza, who increased its size, were like, wow, this is awesome. This is stimulating everyone. I think we gotta make the pizza even bigger. And I think I'm dragging this out a little bit, but let's say you increase it to 1,000 inches. Now the 1,000-inch diameter pizza, every slice of that is going to be worth less than the slice from the 24-inch pizza. because it's not that scarce anymore. There's an abundance of pizza. Not everyone needs it right now, and it just becomes less valuable. So let's apply that whole thing. Hopefully that connected to someone, to money. So the dollars, US dollar, used to be redeemable in gold. Used to be able to take your dollar to the bank and they would say, all right, cool, here's your gold. There was only a certain amount of dollars every year, and the amount of those dollars was only increasing, let's say, by the amount of gold that was being mined. So gold takes a lot of work to produce. You have to mine it. You got to, physically hit at earth, and then you get the gold ore, and then you have to refine the ore into the bars. And it's nice. Like, the supply of gold only increases by a small percentage each year. It's a hard money, so it's valuable because it's hard to make more. When the US took the dollar off the gold standard, meaning you could no longer go to a bank and say, here's $20, can I have gold? They'll say no, because the dollar's not backed by gold anymore. What this allowed the government to do was have the ability to print as many dollars as it wanted. And I'm sorry if I say the government. I think it's the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is not the government. The Federal Reserve prints money and gives it to the government, lends it out to the government at interest, which means the government is in debt to the Federal Reserve. And so the amount of dollars is increasing every year. Ever since we went off the gold standard, it is increasing exponentially. Take a look at the global M2 money supply chart. Google that. And you'll see just today how much money is being printed from nothing. The problem with the dollar versus gold is, like we were saying earlier, with gold, it's called proof of work, meaning if you have a verified gold bar that's real gold, it means it took work to produce that. With the dollar, you just go, boop, you press a button, you can print as much, type in a few keys, print as much dollars as you want. Digitally, now that we're in a digital world, you can print digital dollars. Every time you take out a loan to buy a house or any loan that goes through the bank, where do they get that money from? They don't get it from other customers' deposits. They get it from the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve prints those dollars out of nothing, gives it to the bank, gives it to you. Actually, I think in a mortgage, taking out a loan for your mortgage, or just getting a mortgage in general, you don't even see that money. The money gets printed into thin air, and you never see it. You just know that the house is yours, and you have to pay the mortgage on the house. So, either way, that's one way that money is being printed. The other way is by government policy. Like, some politician has an agenda. They want to get something done. Are they going to ask the citizens of that country for increased taxes so they can afford what they want to do? Or are they going to go to the Federal Reserve and say, hey, money printer, go burr, give me the money now, and then I can do whatever I want because I am in power. And what happens is the Fed gives the government or that politician all of its all of the money that just got created out of thin air. It doesn't allocate it evenly to the rest of the country, just this one entity. That's called a misallocation of capital. And what happens is now only a small percentage of people have a lot of money now. So they live in abundance. They can buy as much things as they want. The people selling the things to those people that have all the money look at how much money they have and they're like, you're really rich. Like, we can make some money off of you. So they raise their prices. And they raise their prices. Now other people that are buying things for them that are not the people that the wealth originally went to are experiencing a higher price of goods or services, but they didn't get any allocation of the printed capital. They still have to work to produce their dollars. People with access to the money printer don't put in any work. They don't add any value to the world, but they get value from the printer. So in a zero-sum game because they're winning, but who's paying for that? Who's paying for the prices rising? It's everyone else that wasn't a part of that original print. So if you're not the government, if you're not a politician, if you're like middle class, even upper class or lower class, you're the one that is experiencing a higher price without your income increasing at the rate that the prices of everything else are increasing. This causes suffering and hardship. I remember when I first got my big boy, my adult job, my career. I remember I was in the car with my dad and I was about to start working full time in, an adult job. And we were talking about how much you need to save in order to retire. And I remember saying, $1 million's not enough today. And my dad was like, you're absolutely right. You at least two. You need at least two. And what happened was, after he said that, I thought about my starting salary and $2 million. And my head went, what the fuck? How, with my salary, am I going to make enough money to retire? And because, deep down, like, corporate, who wants to work in a corporate environment for their entire lives? Just doesn't sound too appealing, right? You want to do what you want in life. You want to be free. And having a career is another way of saying it's just prolonged enslavement to the siphoning of purchasing power that the dollar once had. In that, I wonder if we looked at a graph of the amount of money needed to retire in the U.S. from 1925 to 2025, it would probably increase by a lot. You don't, the amount that you needed to retire in 1925 is, I would guess, much lower than the amount you need today to retire. So it felt like, having that conversation with my dad, it felt like drowning a little bit. that, I'm just gonna I'm gonna have to be forced to work to survive. That doesn't sound fun. And put me, into like a small depression, especially when COVID happened. Like, I wasn't going out at all or just living. I mean, I was just in my parents' house. I was saving a lot of money, but I mean, one thing that I'm kind of frustrated with, like, hearing growing up is save. Save, 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 save. What do you got to do? Just got to save. Like, that's what I would hear all the time. And that is true. Getting that drilled into my head was a good thing, because that's what I did and that's what I do and that's what I've done. So it's like, saving is great. But in my mind, I was thinking, well, what about the spending? Don't you, you kind of have to spend to live and to enjoy life, right? What good is life if you're saving a shit ton, but you're eating rice and beans and chicken every day, and you work extra overtime, and you work weekends, or you just watch Netflix after work and during weekends. I mean, there's consequences to that. Yes, you're saving a lot, but are you enjoying the only thing that you ever have, which is right here and now, the present moment? If this is all there is just right now, then doesn't it make sense to splurge a little, to find out what's out there? It could be free, it could cost money. Like, find out what's in Japan. Take a flight to Japan and see what's there. Like, yes, that's going to cost money, but it's going to enrich your experience of life. You'll learn more about yourself. You'll be more cultured, and you'll have an expansion of your awareness. And I think hard to put a price on expanding your awareness. Especially like all the value that you get from it, that you can come back and tell stories about where you've been, especially in the age of the internet, where you can share it and people will interact with you, and you can maybe end up building a community from it. But I think there's a general sentiment these days that you can probably agree with, which is, why are things so expensive? Why is everything getting expensive? Don't you hear that a lot? Like, oh, it's so expensive. Why is everything so expensive? And then the obvious answer is inflation. Like, that's just like the blanket answer, right? Then, yeah, you're like, oh, fucking inflation. And then you start talking about sports. How come no one's ever actually asked why is there inflation? And is there, more importantly, is there a way out? I mean, actually, I wouldn't put that over the why. I think you need to understand why there is inflation first, and asking yourself, what is money? What makes good money? What makes bad money? If you're curious about that, I mean, there's a book called The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous, and in that book he goes through several examples of things that were used as money throughout history, and what happened. He gives examples of good money and bad money, and something like bad money is he used an example of seashells on a certain island near Fiji or something, or Guam. And seashells were great. I mean, people were trading shells for goods and services. Things were all well and good until another explorer from Europe or something came to that island and saw that they were using shells as currency, and what he knew or discovered was there was another island or piece of land a little bit further away from the island with a shit ton of those shells. So what he did was he gathered up all the shells from the other island and brought them to the first island, where he pimped out and like bought all this shit. And what he didn't realize at the time that he was doing was he was increasing the supply of that currency, which is going to raise the prices of everything. Remember that conversation where you're like, well, this guy has so much money, let's raise our prices. We can make more from that guy. So what happened is everyone who was saving those shells using it as a store of value was finding that things were getting more expensive and they were saving less. So it was getting harder, and their life was getting harder. And the more you increase the supply of a certain money in an area, the more suffering there will be, because people are going to start to struggle to afford things. And it just seems like a very front issue today with the dollar, with America, that people are struggling to afford and live comfortably. And this doesn't make sense because technology is advancing by leaps and bounds every day. AI is changing things wildly quickly. And what should be happening naturally is it's easier to make things with technology. So it makes sense for it to be cheaper over time because it's taking less work to do those things, to produce those goods and services. But that the opposite is true. Everything's getting more expensive. So we're kind of trapped. And I have already mentioned it, but there's this technology called Bitcoin. And what Bitcoin is a defense against inflation. Just take a look at things that are priced in Bitcoin, and it follows the natural state of the free market, which is deflationary. That the easier it is to produce things, the cheaper those things get. If you look at the price of a house, the median price of a house in the U.S. priced in Bitcoin in 2015, it was probably maybe like 1,000 Bitcoin or something to get a house, normal house. Today, it's like 4-5 Bitcoin to buy a median house in the U.S., and that number is going to keep going down. Eventually, it's going to cost 1 Bitcoin to buy a house. And then even past that, it's going to cost less than a coin, just a fraction of a coin to get a whole house. And why is this happening? Because basically inflation can't be stopped. The government we're living in a debt-based system where the government owes the Federal Reserve interest on its loans. Therefore, the government's in debt. And if we paid all that debt back, everything would collapse. So we have to keep borrowing. We have to keep creating money out of nothing to keep this machine going. What happens with more dollars that are being printed? Well, with Bitcoin treasury companies, aka companies that just buy Bitcoin, and have they're on the stock exchange, money is going to flow into those treasury companies. And if people that invest in Bitcoin themselves, people are going to put more of the inflated money into Bitcoin, especially if the government's buying Bitcoin now, it's just going to keep growing, the network. And it's growing at a faster rate than everything else. So not only will you be protected by inflation with Bitcoin, you'll be getting ahead of it faster than any other asset class. And this is, as of now, in my opinion, the best way out of the trap of inflation. So if you study Bitcoin, don't take my advice. And if I say buy Bitcoin, don't do it because I said it. I hope I don't say that. I would like you to learn about Bitcoin and learn about money and inflation first before even considering putting some of your money into it. And should you decide to start, you could start small. You don't have to buy a whole coin. You could buy 0.01, which is about $1,200 worth of Bitcoin. Even if that's too much, just buy like $20 worth of Bitcoin. Start small. And I would suggest to keep learning about it, and maybe do like $20 a month for now. Because if you just hold on to that $20 and you don't invest at all in it, the $20 is going to buy you less and less things. What think about like 10 years ago, like what $20 would get you at Taco Bell? You'd be fucking chowing, bro, with $20. Now, $20 in Taco Bell, like, you're going to get a steak chalupa, a cheesy gordita crunch, and like a large or like a medium drink, right? And that's going to bring you to like $18. At least, in California. Shit's expensive here. But eventually that $20 is just going to get you a chalupa. And then it's just going to get you a soda. So it's ridiculous, but that seems to be where we're headed. And, you could also say, well, what about gold? Gold's a pretty hard asset. It's harder. The gold is harder than the dollar. The supply of gold is still increasing every year, slowly. One cool thing about Bitcoin is that its supply never increases. It will never increase. And I could do whole videos about the properties of Bitcoin. But I think what, if anything, to take away from this podcast episode is inflation fucking sucks. A lot of people have a misconception that it's good for the economy, that it stimulates the economy, it prevents crashes from happening. Yes, it does prevent the chaos of societal collapse because the machine is keeping running right now, but it's like a slow grinding halt to complete debasement and purchasing power of the dollar, to the point where, far in the future, you could have $100,000 and it would mean almost nothing. Like, you could just look at at another failed currency in the history of humanity, and if you study it enough, you could see where it's going. And there's a new asset. There's a new way to purchase, to store value, to have just a way to build a new world, a tool to build a world where people are creating value and earning what they deserve for the value they create. And it seems like a very cool thing, attractive ideology and just a way. It's a way to change how things are right now. I mean, it's not good or bad because there's always gonna be bad actors. Like confusion about our egos and how to use these tools like money to either help or hurt people. I just think it's a change that I am embracing right now, and I plan to keep embracing, and until some other information comes along and changes my mind. But as of now, I think Bitcoin could be a nice future. I'll leave the episode here. I'm at 30 minutes, so hopefully you enjoyed and got something out of it. If not, I'm sorry for wasting your time. But yeah, that's it for me, and I'll catch you on the next one.